thingy sort of thing now. So if you got input for something I should be doing in this tutorial, you should let me know. But I'm gonna go legit basics and load these in. Oh, what happened? Okay, well, I should suppose I can just start here. So if you have, for example, a ESP on your mod list and its master isn't loaded, you won't be able to load uh, TES5 at all. So right now it says fatal exception, Thunderchild requires master Thunderchild epic shout package, right? So obviously I can't load this anywhere. So it's going to close down. Well, I'll probably have to close it. So if I go to it, in Mod Organizer, you can hover over it and it'll actually tell you what the masters are. So Thunderchild Dragon language word says that the one of the masters is the epic shout package, which is here. So this is obviously out of order, right? So if I try to load my game up, this would be an insta crash because this uh, ESP here requires the one below it as a master. So to sort that, you just grab it, drop it, boom. That's conflict resolution, hopefully. So this basically is just loaded in all your ESPs, and it does give you some amount of information. Um, Again, if there's an error, it'll let you know right here as well. Um, the Probably one of the main things I want to talk about is when people talk about conflicts. People throw it around a lot. What's does this mod conflict with the X mod? Well, unless they are all brand new mods, editing, creating completely new things, most likely you will find conflicts. So for example, I want to use Requiem because Requiem touches a lot of things, right? This is a huge mod. It touches on many, many things. All right. If I open it up, you'll notice that we have green and then we have this sort of orange with a grayed out color. All right, green means it's not being overwritten. All right, so when you click on a file or whatever you call these things here, um, it'll load up every other ESP in your load order that also edits that same exact property. All right, so Requiem is editing this the trap stone pressure plate that Skyrim ESM also edited. All right, all this means, the fact that it's green, all it means is that the Requiem ESP for this particular item is not being overwritten. So that's what the green means. We have this here, right? It's purple or this red, orange, red sort of thing. It's because it's a conflict winner. All right, so there is a conflict. If I right click, you could hide no conflict rows, so you can go to precisely what the conflict is. So red means it's a huge conflict, means it's either, in this case, it's the ESP that's overriding it doesn't have these files at all, or they changed the files, and hopefully we'll see another example in a bit. So that's kind of the basis for the colors, right? So green means it's a conflict winner and nothing overwrites it. Um, this is another conflict winner when it's this sort of grayed out look, but it's missing information or it has changed information from a previous ESP. All right, and again, almost every mod conflicts. You will always find conflicts. What you don't want are uh, conflicts in the sense that there's a spell. Let's say it's a spell, right? There's a spell that we want. Let's say, or this is a good example. So red means it's whatever is in this ESP is being completely overwritten. In this case, it's just a value, right? So the magnitude of this shout from from Requiem ESP is being overwritten by the Thunderchild ESP. Now, again, this is probably the only time you really want to worry about conflicts. Well, no, I take that back. Conflicts are pretty bad. You got to take a good look at them sometimes, especially when it's they're editing uh, actual locations. But numbers like this, you know, it, it uh, the conflict really comes down to what do you want. So in this case, Requiem has a 15 magnitude. Do I want 15 for this particular shout? Yes. If I want it, then I'll just drag it across. No more conflict, right? No more conflict. If I didn't want it and I wanted to keep that 10, I could just put the 10 back in. The conflict will remain, but this is fine. This is a conflict that you want. You want the magnitude for the shout to be 10. All right. Um, let's see. There are the odd occasions where you'll have conflicts that are really bad. I can't think of any combination of mods that I've found that I can just load in quickly for you. But sometimes those conflicts can be game breaking. What scenario? I honestly I'm not a professional with TES5. I just use it to get my game functional. That's as far as my knowledge goes, which is what I'm sharing with you. Um, Another thing you want to do with TES5 actually is check for errors. So you can right click and check for errors. It's usually really fast. In this case, we have an error. So it says recycle this for, oops, there's more. And there's more. Well, Requiem is a huge mod, so it probably has a lot. It's probably a bad example. Uh, check for errors. Yeah, okay, so check for errors. No errors, right? Sky UI, all done. If I wanted to go fix these all up, what are these? What are those? Quest stage not found. Oh, this is fine. So these are Requiem adjusted quests. Um, they changed it from vanilla, but this is fine. This is what it's meant to be. So you can leave those. Sometimes they'll just be like null inputs. Those are also fine. The null inputs are really no problem. What else do we do with these? Right, so I mean that's more or less conflict resolution right there. Again, this is orange, it's overriding something else. So these are all the ESPs that edit this particular file, and the one on the end is the one that's going to be the conflict winner no matter what. Right, so let's look at Requiem. What's in Requiem? So for example, this is here. Maybe I want this to be in the game. It does, this is just for example. Maybe I want this to be a game. I could just click it, drag it, drop it, or not. Why are you edit data? You should be able to drag across. Why are you not dragging? Or maybe I have to grab from the top. That's odd. Bass, why am I not being able to? I should be able to move. Because if I grab that, see that can move. Why is this not being able to move? Maybe this can't. Function parameters. Not sure why that is. Again, I'm not an expert at this thinking thing. So, what for whatever reason, this particular value doesn't want to be carried across. But
That section that you're trying to move, part of a
mhm.
whole script
Oh, it's
or
a
a
script.
part of
Okay.
a whole function.
Right.
You
Okay.
would have to drag all the way to the top of that.
Oh, okay. All right. It's probably part of one of these things. Okay. I see. Well, yeah. Um, Armors are really easy. You can change values of your armors. So you look around. There's all these things on the side. If you don't know what to do, just use a wiki and move things around. So for example, let's say I have an armor, it's iron gauntlets. Maybe I don't want them to be heavy. Maybe I want them to just be clothing. I could just change that. It's changed, right? So you can edit many, many things in TES5 edit from values here. You can change all the numbers. Uh, 600. So I got 600 weight right now. So if I put this on, I'll be standing still, won't be able to move. From here, actually, you could also change textures. So if you look here, they're looking at NIF files. NIF files are meshes. Yeah, those are meshes. So you can change the meshes and stuff like that. That's a bit advanced, I suppose. Even for me, I'm not the most versed in that aspect. But what I usually stick around is like values for spells, for example. So, not level spells. So we can, let's look at a spell. Let's say Ice Spike. For example, we can change the cost of the spell, we can change the magnitude, the area of effect, the duration. We could even change the different magic effects of it. So these are all just magic effects. I can change these by a flip of a button. Put whatever I want on it. Well, whatever I want to an extent. Fire and forget means you cast it and it's a projectile, so you won't be able to do a on hit magic effect because obviously you need on hit. But you could flip this around. You could maybe make this an on hit sort of thing. So concentration scroll. You could switch stuff around. Um, could do a lot of things with Test 5. A lot of people start to go towards creation kit before they really need to. Creation kit for me is when you're trying to create something brand new. Most people just want like they want slow time not to last as long, or maybe they want the sword to be a bit more powerful. Or for me, like the Red Eagle sword, I didn't like how mundane or basic the enchantments were. You could go and change all of those things. Now, once you've changed it, especially if you're new, always click backup plugins. That's one thing you always want to do just in case you make a mistake. In this case, I made changes. I don't want to make those changes. So I'm just going to click OK. In fact, I'm just going to untick them just in case. I'll take those out. Um, so that was backing up your your changes. What else did I want? Let's go back in. One of the things a lot of people don't take advantage of, like Mr. Bass here, there's actually a script that you can run to merge files. It's really pretty easy to use. Usually I run them on patches. The reason is the patches themselves are never masters or almost never masters. Um, there's actually two ways you can do a merge file. Uh, I'll show you the script one first. That's probably the easier one. Oh yeah, I'm gonna talk about that too, Sack. Yeah. So how do I do this again? I honestly forgot. So I'm gonna, oh, actually, let me take a step back. So if, let's say we had a really long mod list, we could actually do apply filter. All right, so it says we can sort it by conflict status. So I usually just take these two, conflict and critical conflict, and the same for this section down here, conflict and critical conflict. Check those, and then you do a filter. And what this does is any file that isn't conflicting or critically conflicting. Critically conflicting is those ones that are red, like deep red, means it's being completely overwritten or major bits of the ESP is being overwritten. Um, this will sort it so that only those conflicts show up. So sometimes entire ESPs will disappear because the ESP is introducing completely new information. A lot of mod authors actually tweak the names of the files. So they may be editing a shout, but they rename the shout to something else, and because it's a brand new name, nothing will overwrite it. So it'll show up as just white writing. When you do the apply filter like this, uh, the the test 5 will actually remove those because there's nothing to conflict there outright, so they won't show up. This does take a bit longer though, especially if you have a really long mod list, it'll take forever. Notice that my my dragon what was it called? Dragon language ESP. It's no longer here, and that's because nothing conflicts with it whatsoever. So again, orange, these are conflict winners, which means there are bits in these ESPs that are overriding bits in these ESPs. Now update all of these here. 99.9% of the time, these are, in fact, every single time, these are going to be red because every mod edits these. It's always going to be something within these files that are going to be overwritten. And again, because Requiem is such a huge mod, you will find a lot of conflicts. So Requiem is always red pretty much. So we can see here that there's something in the ingestible that's being overwritten. If we click on it, it's a potion. Well, not overwritten, it's a conflict winner. Sorry, it's orange, so it's a conflict winner. So basically, this is the only thing that's being overwritten. So we could drag and drop. I notice it turns green. Now again, this is only if I want this value. I could absolutely just leave this alone. So let's say I wanted the 150. I don't want it to be a value of 194. This is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with this. It is a conflict. Re Requiem is conflicting with the USKP patch, but it's a conflict I want. So as I said, when people use the word conflicts, uh, it's really one of those things where it irks me a bit because conflicts aren't always bad. You do want some conflicts. The red ones, again, it really matters what you prefer. So this means it's being overwritten, and this is just a description. So again, if I want this description in front of Thunderchild, I can drop it. No longer conflicting. Right? It's all green. And I could do this is conflict resolution that I'm doing here. So if I want this, I can just drag and drop green, right? Again, null references. So this is an example of this might throw up an error, but this isn't necessarily, you know, anything wrong with the mod, the ESP. So this is fine for the most part. So again, these are all effects, conditions that the shout will add to an actor or revolve around actor. When the more you use Test 5, the more you get it. Thunderchild doesn't have this. Do I want it? Maybe I do, maybe I don't. If I want it, I'll just grab it, drag and drop, no more conflict, right? So that's the basic gist of it. The hard part is really learning what each of these things mean. So less than or equal to 600, what does that mean? And you can use the wiki to help you out with those things. Uh, right, so this is something I do at the beginning of a mod list. I'll load everything up, put in all my patches that I need, and then just do apply filter, look at the conflicts, and I usually go bottom up because the ones at the top, as I said, they're always going to be overwritten because there's the mods below these are editing the bits of these ESPs. So I'll always go bottom up and do conflict resolution from the bottom up. Again, I don't want these to be saved, so I'm not backing up, and I don't want to keep the changes. So if you have these checked, that means the changes are going to be kept. If you have it checked and then this unchecked, that means you're very confident in the change that you made and you're going to leave it that way. That means this ESP is permanently edited. All right. if you don't have the backup. There's nothing you can do to reset it unless you knew what you changed and you can just manually put the number back in or a fresh install. Um, Generally, if I change something, I try to change small bits at a time. When you start to do long, like large amounts of changes on multiple ESPs, that's usually a problem because if you do break something, which ESP broke it? You're not sure. All right. So I do recommend editing small bits at a time. It might take longer, but it's safer in the end. All right. So, right, this patch thing. Actually, yeah, he did remind me. So there is another way of doing a merge patch. It's kind of a manual patch. Um, I try to do this whenever the ESP in question is actually editing vanilla stuff. So the master will be ESM. So yeah, okay. So sometimes you can make changes and say I have mod organizer and I'm using Thunderchild on multiple profiles. Maybe I have a Requiem profile and then I have a vanilla profile. Let's say I want to change. Let's go to spells again. Aura Whisper. Maybe I want to change this to, I don't know, maybe area of damage. Let's make it 4. Well, we want it to be 400, right? But I don't want to change the actual ESP just because I'm using it across multiple profiles. What you can do is right click, copy as override into, and then you could create a brand new file. Let's say TES5EDIT fixes. Now what this does, it creates an ESP and it's gonna ask me, do I want um, this ESP that I'm creating to have Skyrim ESM as a master? This is what you want, and I'll tell you why in a second. So now I have test5 edit fixes. Now again, this ESP I'm using across multiple profiles, so I don't want to edit it because in Mod Organizer, if I edit this, it'll affect multiple profiles. So I want to make a fix just specifically for my Requiem profile, and maybe 500 is too much, so I'm going to make it 400. Right? So now I made this change, and I can go on. I can do 200. I can do 5. So this now is going to be the values that's going to show up. I could do it for the entire spells. So I could do deep copy as override into, and I can choose that. Now this time it's gonna ask me, do I want Dawnguard Dragonborn, which is fine. I'm gonna assume you have those in your game, so that's fine for having that as your ESP. But Thunderchild Epic Shout package, do I want this to be my ESP? Well, if I plan to use my fixes ESP all the time with Thunderchild, that's fine. I'll say yes. Sometimes you don't want that. Sometimes you don't want, you just want to get all the effects from the mod and throw it into this fixes. And I'll show you that in a second. Right, so I clicked yes. Now if I look in my test5 edit fixes, now I have all of the files. Right? So they're all in here, every single one of them from Thunderchild. Now I can edit every single one of them, or I can pick and choose which ones I want to edit. And this is a really good way to save ESPs sometimes. All right, so I'm going to leave that one in. Now let's say I'm at 255 ESPs, which means I can't have another ESP at all. I have no room for another ESP, right? Oh, override. Create mod. So the new ESP, let me show you that. The new ESP actually got thrown into the overwrite, and that's because test5 edit created it, and it doesn't know where to go. So this ESP needs to go into a mod slot. So you just go create mod, test5 edit, oops, tutorial goes in. All right, so now I have it check mark because I want it loaded. Now, let me pick a really easy one. What's a good... Mm, right, so this is just an ESP. There's nothing else affecting this. There's no scripts, there's nothing else. This is an easy one. So maybe I want this mod in my mod list, but I don't have space. What I can do, load up TES5EDIT, get it in there. A lot of the time, TES5 editing is actually very tedious because let's say I don't like how slow my bow is being pulled. The Requiem, that's an issue a lot of people have. They don't like how slow the draw speed is. You can go through all of your bows in your level lists and edit it. You know, maybe you don't like the speed of the light bows being 0.417, you want it to be zero point 0.5. So you would have to edit each and every one of them. So it's a bit tedious. All right, so this has one set of files. This is all it does. All right, and a good sign is of this being mergeable is that this is its master. Skyrim ESM is the master for this mod. So what I can do, if I want all of these, I can do deep copy as override into, check this test5 edit fixes, boom, it's all in there. So these exact files are now in this mod, and I no longer need this ESP. However, this is like manual merging. I have all of the effects of this ESP into my fixes ESP, but it doesn't take up a slot, right? So I'm finished, save it, and I can completely deselect this, right? So I just merged that uh that mod into my fixes ESP, and you could do this with many mods. In general, I try to keep it simple. So if a mod is tweaking something very small, like this candlelight tweaks mod, I'll do this sort of thing. If it comes with scripts or textures, or maybe textures should be fine as well. You could put the textures into the the mod here. You could just drop it into the right folder. So you could put the textures in there as well. But when it comes with scripts, I tend to stay away from those just to be safe, but it's potentially not a problem. You can do it. Right, so let's look at the script method now. So that's the manual merging. It's effectively the same thing that the script will do. So what I'm going to do, I don't want to have two patches. I only want one. So I'm going to put these two together. Let's see if I can remember how to do it now. It's been a while. When you're doing merges though, try not to merge master files. Reason being is when you merge these, anything that's dependent on this master file will no longer see it uh, present. So remember that error that we got in the very beginning when the Dragon language words was out of position? It was looking for Epic Shout package, this specific spelling, everything as its master. When we merge the files, if I did that, the name would be changed. So anything requiring Thunderchild, Epic Shout package as a master will still be looking for it and it won't be there. So never merge master files. And I think it's also recommended not to merge anything that has MCMs in there. Again, I tend to just stick to patches or really simple mods. First thing you always want to do is check for errors. No errors, brilliant. Check for errors, brilliant. And then we're going to apply script, merge plugin script. Obviously, this is the last script that I use. Click OK. And we're going to check mark the ones that we want. So we want the two patches. These are the two patches. The colors that are showing up, this is basically a user input. If it's green, it means that all users have said that it's fine to merge these things. I wouldn't try merging the unofficial patches or any of the official patches either. And again, try not to merge things with MCMs. But yeah, if it says green, that means it's fine to merge. So I want these two patches merged. I'm just going to say OK, create new file. So this is Thunderchild patches. And I tend to write number of them. So it's two ESPs, just so I can keep track of what's in there. And it's completed. Obviously, this is a small version, so it's going to be very fast. Pretty sure it's done. And there we go. We got our new ESP. Right? What this means is these two ESPs are no longer necessary. Right? I can save that. That's going to go in. So these two can be unchecked, and this can be raised up and checked. And now instead of two ESPs, I have one ESP. And again, we're going to get something in our overwrite because it's just created an ESP for us. And we're going to create mod. And again, just say what it is under child uh, merged ESP2 ESP patches. Just to say what it is. There we go. Check mark. Merged. And there you go. So everything that was in these two patches are now in this one ESP. And it's as simple as that. Again, it gets a bit more complicated when there's scripts and stuff involved, but luckily the merge script will handle all of that for you. So if there were other files in there, they would show up in your overwrite. And again, once you create the mod, everything would be dropped inside. So that's as easy as it is. Um, Rybash is one of those that is ignored a lot of the time. I like to use Rybash. It also lets you know when mods are not working, and it tells you straight off the bat majority of the time when it isn't working. And there's one bit of information that I have no idea how much of an effect it actually has, but I don't take any chances. So notice that these are green check marks on all of these, right? They have no problems. Sometimes you'll see a orange check mark or red check mark. What you can do is hover over it and see what it says. So I'm hovering here, but if you look in the bottom here, it'll give you some information. So if I hover over here, it says masters have been reordered. Now what that means is the load order changed. That's basically what it is. And I don't know how much of an effect that has on your game, but to solve it, we use TES5, right? Hop back into TES5 again, uh, uncheck that one. Let's go there. Um, there's a few things we can do with this. And again, we're trying to make Rybash happy. So sometimes Rybash will have things checked and it'll be orange. When you hover over it, it just says art masters have been reordered. To solve it, it's literally like it's a very simple thing to do. I do recommend loading a single ESP at a time when you're doing this, but it probably doesn't matter. So we have these options here, add masters. sort masters, clean masters. Now all of these have various functions. The one we wanted that I'm referring to right now is the sort masters. So if the masters were reordered, you would literally just click this and it would sort itself out. All right. It might not look like anything was done, but when you go back into Rybash, you'll notice that it turned from an orange check mark to a green check mark. Sometimes we have mods, especially with Requiem. The mod is made for Requiem and it's meant to be loaded after Requiem, but the mod author didn't make the file dependent on Requiem. So let's say we had a patch. Well, let's just use this Thunderchild patch here. So this, if I was to add this to loot and run this in loot, it may end up on top of Requiem. And if the point of the mod is to work with Requiem, you usually want those to be loaded afterwards. 90% of the mod authors are good with this, but others aren't. So what you can do if you want to make sure this always loads after Requiem, you do add masters and well, I don't know why it's not there as an option, but Sky UI, let's just say we want Sky UI as a master, you can do that. So if I run loot, every single time I run it, it'll always load after Sky UI, right? That's just an example. Um, let's say we dropped some edits into this patch. I don't know, maybe I edited, maybe I dropped PowerShot in there and I don't want it there anymore. And when I added PowerShot, it made Epic Shout packages a master just because it is one edit. Now, I don't want the edit anymore. I can remove it. Yes, I do. But what's going to happen is this ESP is still dependent on Epic Shout packages, even though I removed the file that I added into it, right? But we can just do clean masters, in which case it removed the Epic Shout package as a master. The only time you're really gonna need this is let's say you made an edit and it made another ESPN master and you don't want it there anymore. You want to remove that from your merge patch. For whatever reason, you want to remove it. So that's why you do clean master. And it's a similar thing if we do test 5 merge patch. I don't know if you guys have done that before. Um, we can do other and create a merge patch. Yes, test 5 merged. This is similar to a bash patch. It does similar things. It's doing its thing right now, so I gotta wait. It's similar to a bash patch, but if you play Requiem, you don't want this to affect your leveled list. So one of the things you always do when you do these test 5 merge patches is actually remove the leveled lists. And you would remove them. And again, we don't want the test 5 merge ESP to be dependent on anything that was added into those level lists. So you would clean masters and done. Those sort of stuff. So I don't know if you guys are going to be able to use all of this information, but that's pretty much the extent of my knowledge, I think. Pretty sure. Uh, One thing for Requiem, people always have this issue. They run loot, they run Requiem in their load order with loot, and it puts it in the wrong place. This is how you sort it out. Go to Requiem, click on these three dots on the side, edit metadata, give it a priority of 1. By default, it has a priority of 0, which is why it loads all over the place with loot. If you give it a priority of 1, some people have said 1000. You could put 1000, it doesn't matter. Put it as a priority of 1, and it will, well, obviously we want to save that change. Oops, check mark, save, and if we run loot, we'll see that it actually keeps them in the right positions. Yep, so Requiem dropped down the order. The test 5 edit fixes, notice that this got bumped up to the top, and also the patch here stayed below Requiem. Remember I said we added the Requiem as a master, so it'll stay below Requiem when loot is run. The test 5 edit fixes doesn't have Requiem as a master. Let's say we wanted it to stay below Requiem, we would just add Requiem as a master for that. And it would, if we ran loot again, this would load below it. And that's, again, that's the extent of my knowledge, I think. I don't think there's anything else for me to talk about.